You know, there's very little denying that a declaration of emergency rule in Rivers State was going to be contentious. A total of 11 governors of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, have approached the Supreme Court challenging the legality of a suspension of a democratically elected structure of a state. But in a swift reaction, President Bola Tinubu has challenged the suit at the apex court. The number one citizen wants the Supreme Court to dismiss the suit on the grounds that it did not fit into the jurisdiction of the court, citing Section 2321 of the Constitution. BKO, in law, jurisdiction is key.
Yes, that is true. But I also know that when governors decided to sue the president over the Naira redesign, the Supreme Court, it was felt at that time that no, the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction to entertain the matter, but the Supreme Court assumed jurisdiction and decided the matter in the way that it didn't fit. I think it was Justice Antonio Okoro who eventually who led the panel at that time. So the Supreme Court, being a court of policy, can decide to assume jurisdiction in this matter so that the matter can be dealt with expeditiously and permanently. So I won't be surprised if the Supreme Court decides to assume jurisdiction on the matter. It's well within their power as a court of policy. So, as far as the 11 governors of PDP are concerned, the president has not got the power to take the decision that he has taken. And they believe that it is against the federal nature of our country that a president should interfere in the running of a state to the extent that he now brings in the retired soldier to serve as administrator of that state. So the legal fireworks, I can imagine the legal fireworks that would happen, because the AGF is saying that they need to disclose any course of action and cite previous court judgments. Now, this is not a dispute between the state governments and the federal government, because it is when they have dispute that the Supreme Court can
intervene.
Yes, can wade in and decide. And so, but the plaintiffs are asking the court to declare that the suspension of Governor Fubara and his deputy is unlawful and illegal. They also want the court to nullify the appointment of Mr. Ibas as sole administrator on the basis that the president lacked the constitutional power to make such an appointment. They argue that the declaration of emergency did not comply with the constitutional requirements set by Section 305 of the Constitution. But as I said earlier, we've been in this situation before when it was argued that the Supreme Court lacked jurisdiction to entertain the case, and the Supreme Court assumed jurisdiction because the matter has to be decided. Whichever way we look at it, the Supreme Court has to decide on this matter.
Adewale?
Well, I think, first of all, we need to explore the judiciary at every time where there is a, political or legal dispute, so that we can use that declaration of the Supreme Court as a source of precedent. Like the PDP governors are talking about the fact that the president has no right, and then they're also challenging the process that was through voice note, and that the president has no power to appoint administrator. Why the federal government that has filed notice of preliminary objection is saying that the Supreme Court has no jurisdiction, and that the PDP governors have no local standard. And I think technically, what may come out in the court is that, is it the Rivers State government that is suing the federal government? You know, which is actually the state that is a contention.
That's the victim.
Yes, the victim. Or the PDP governors. In what way are they really
aggrieved,
aggrieved in this process? And also when you are talking about Rivers State,
yeah,
and you are talking about Rivers State as a state, are the lawmakers joined in that suit? Or we are assuming that the governor and his deputy represent only the state? So these are technical issues that I think will come up in court. So the Attorney General is saying that
is once the Supreme Court assumes
jurisdiction.
Yeah.
We now argue, well, okay, is it because the lawmakers, you know, they are also part of the, and they are not part of the suit too. So the government is saying that it's an abuse of court process. But I think politically, let's assume that politically there is a problem. Among the PDP governors that have gone to court, one of them has gone to APC. That is Delta State governor. And then one is a suspect in terms of crossing over. That's Akwa Ibom governor. So I don't know what will happen, even though they are part of this team initially. So that problem is going to come up. But then, even if they win, the PDP governors wins, going back to resume as governor of Rivers State, would that be in the interest of the governor? Because that may also mean you are empowering the lawmakers who are more in number to remove Fubara. So it's a very dicey thing, and I hope they weigh the options very well before we wait for another court judgment that will not favor, at the end of the day, will not favor Fubara, because it might be removed, by the lawmakers.
BK, permit me to quote what's his name, Napoleon Bonaparte. He said, "In politics, stupidity is not a handicap." No. So sure. you look at the statement and wondering, is this politics, hardcore politics?
No, you see, you can't fault the governors. They are worried that if it can happen to Fubara, it can also happen to them. The president can send anybody packing. So, but people also need to look at the other options in the resolution of this matter.
Okay.
I think that it makes sense for the National Assembly to continue this, the steps that it has taken, which is to find an amicable solution.
A middle ground.
An amicable solution to this problem. And according to them, they've been meeting with stakeholders, they've been on ground. So their own goal is to ensure that this matter does not last 6 months. You know? And the way the thing is going, gradually, 6 months will be here. As I was telling someone the other, I said, Natasha, like play, Natasha don't stay home now for a couple of months. Before you know it, to be 6 months. Because I don't see what really is going on that will suggest that 6 months will not be spent sitting at home. So, and it's similar to this one. Until we see some concrete steps, we are not careful, 6 months
would lapse.
Yes, but I want to toe the line of the federal lawmakers that this thing doesn't have to last 6 months. They can try to make peace between the two men with giant egos, Nyesom Wike and Fubara. If they will put the state first, honestly, this matter can be resolved in 1 hour. If they will put their state and their people first, it can be resolved in 1 hour. And that's what we should be thinking about. And I know that courts, including the Supreme Court, sometimes will say, okay, let's give people time to go and resolve this matter. Your lawyers can report to us on the next adjourned date on the progress that you have made in terms of looking for a peaceful resolution. It's not all matters that are decided by the courts. You know, the courts can sometimes decide a matter and the problem will remain. So, in my view, it's difficult to predict what will happen, but I know that the Supreme Court would take a decision in the overriding interest of
the state
Nigerian state, yes.
and the country. Okay, the debate, let it continue. We'll go on a break now. We'll go on a commercial break. We should be back shortly. Please